On tonight's episode of Sanity Lounge, we are happy to welcome Jason Leppo into the studio. Jason has a storied history of discovering the guitar at a young age. Jay immediately jumped into live gigs in downtown Baltimore and D.C. at the exact time in the mid-'80s when new-style D.C. juggernauts like Bad Brains, Fugazi, and Jawbox were ruling the scene. Over the last 35 years, he has been all over the world doing everything from teaching English in China to being a personal assistant to one of the top global action stars of the late 90s. Join us for a fascinating conversation that stretches from downtown Baltimore to the streets of Hong Kong and back to Hanover. This is Sanity Lounge.
Welcome, Baltimore. In the lounge today, we have Jason Leppo, who is kin to the half of Sanity Lounge, Brian Leppo. He's also a guitar virtuoso and the lead guitar on the Sanity Lounge theme song, among the many other projects that he's working on.
He's the lead guitar of Gravedigger's Biscuits currently, and he's the filling guitarist for Brent Bauer when Brent has other duties to do. Jason is the savior that will come in and play with Making Waves occasionally throughout the year and stuff like that. He also recently had been in the Hepcats, which was a Pennsylvania swing band.
That was good.
Incredible.
You sent me that YouTube video.
Oh my gosh, they're incredible. But he is my blood, and I love him, and it's good to see you, buddy.
Love you back, bro. Yeah, it's good to be here.
Welcome.
I'm so excited to join the Sanity Lounge.
I know, man.
Need more sanity.
Yeah. I know. That's the whole concept of the lounge.
Everyone.
Boy, do I need it. But yes.
I know, man. Well, look, so let me, we're going to kind of go all over the place. Eventually, I want to land on Gravedigger's Biscuits. I have something to tell you about Gravedigger's Biscuits that'll blow your face off once we get.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, once we get to it.
I'm going to be kind of along for the ride on this one.
Right.
I have questions for you, but I'm going to let you guys kind of run the show here. But I have some things.
Yeah, what it boils down to is that, Jay and I have a lot of history. You knew Jay through the years. Like occasionally he'd pop up and everything like that. But, right. And so my earliest memory, right, of music in general was you. And I don't know if you know that or not, but I used to be at Mum Leppo's, and God rest her soul. I used to be at Mum Leppo's, and you would always be playing the guitar, always, and you would disappear. Like all of a sudden, I'd hear the guitar 24/7, and then it wouldn't be there, and I'd go, "Where's Jay?" And she'd go, "I don't know, he's out." And I would go into your room, and I found AC/DC's "Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap," and I put it on, and I was like, oh my God. And so anyway, you were just kind of like this mystery to me. You know what I'm saying? And so years go through, and I see you when I see you, and it's always like, well, Jay's in, downtown Baltimore, working at a Chinese restaurant. And he's like, I feel like you were like 17 or something. And I'm going, what? So anyway, so let's talk about that. Like what?
That's where the infamous drum set lived.
And keep in mind, my earliest memory was Mum Leppo and you being at Mum Leppo's.
And the drum set that stayed there.
Oh, right. Well, that eventually, his whatever bands he was in would practice.
Well, they were very supportive. I'll give them that. They didn't always like the choice of musical style so much.
Gosh. It's so funny.
They were very supportive in many, many ways.
Right. So tell me, when did you first pick up the guitar?
I believe my dad, Bruce, had a acoustic guitar laying around, and I know he liked to play it from time to time, but, you only knew maybe one or two songs, and so, I had an interest in the instrument. I was originally drawn to the drums.
Is that right?
Yes. I was a short stint as a violinist in the 4th grade, and just didn't take it seriously enough. And, I don't know what it was. It just didn't stick as much with me, but I really wanted a drum set, wanted to play drums.
And for the record, Uncle Bruce, your father, was the drummer of The Last.
I worked for Bruce, didn't I? At EIG?
Maybe. Is that a technical
Yes.
type? It's possible.
I worked on the assembly line there.
I mean, he does.
He fired me.
No.
Might not be the same guy.
Nah,
It was your
Uncle
uncle,
Bruce.
though. No, who
Yeah,
was it?
but
he had
Bruce
a beard.
is-
He had the beard.
No, that's not Bruce.
Look, I'll be like, oh, you're talking about Richard.
I can't remember his name, but
I can't vouch
he's
for
one
all
of
the
your
Leppos.
uncles, but he fired me because I used to fall asleep.
I gotta know now. I mean,
I know.
man.
It's Richard. It should be Richard.
yeah,
right?
but EIG.
Yeah, it was in Hunt Valley. It was like we made circuit boards,
Oh.
and he was the boss. He hired me, and then he fired me.
That's incredible.
Oh, wow.
Blood uncle.
Yes.
Well, it could have been. Was it at Unitote or
What's that?
Unitote? I think
hell
they
is
used to
it?
be the one that made cash registers and stuff like that, and maybe some of these boards and
Oh,
stuff.
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
It
but
was
do
down
we-
in Hunt
Do
Valley.
we know anyone?
Well,
who
he worked down there in the 70s.
Who, Richard?
This
Maybe
was in the
was it?
70s.
Did your mother have a brother?
Yeah, Uncle Ricky, but I don't think he ever had a beard.
He's not
He's
technical.
not
Man, I
technical.
can't remember.
Yeah, he
Nah,
ain't
that's
technical.
fine.
Yeah, that's incredible though. If that's true, I
No,
feel like I remember that.
Oh, that's
but I just
true.
don't know who it could be. Like,
Oh man, I can't remember.
damn, no.
It was-
Uncle Bruce is soft-spoken. Uncle
Okay.
Bruce, who's my dad's brother.
Right, sure.
Right,
Yeah.
and he's very artsy. He's very like. He used to install cable, which is why I thought maybe, in
Right.
like the Twitterverse or something, you may have worked with him or something like that. But he was never a boss.
No, it was
technically.
one of those things where, I mean, your family hired me for this job.
Right,
it was
right.
a good job,
Right.
but I was still like, we were drinking whiskey
Sure.
on a Tuesday night
man,
until
yeah.
we couldn't see straight, and then I was waking up and going to work,
Right.
and then falling asleep.
It was a
at
just
the fucking-
fire.
You were
at
going
my-
to work and waking up and going to work? What?
at my station. I remember he
I
brought.
wouldn't get that far.
It was a just fire.
He was like, I'm sorry. I was like, I completely
He said,
understand. I knew it wasn't gonna work out.
I mean, that's incredible.
No,
I
that's
got
awesome.
that. Damn. Well, so anyway, so Bruce was a drummer.
Yep.
And he was in my dad's band. Him and my dad and two other guys.
See,
had
we
a
come
band.
from a musical family.
I know.
Yeah,
It's
you
so
do.
weird. Like, it never occurs to me. I always think of dad as a hard ass, like, sports guy.
Yeah, I
and
don't.
stuff. Like,
I mean,
but-
I'm just finding this out myself. I didn't know your dad was.
They-
in a band.
Impeccable musical taste.
Yeah.
So listen, to this day,
Dancing.
people will come up to me at like Fagers, like people who knew dad,
Yeah.
and will like Steve Holland will come up to me, and he's an older guy, and he'll go, "No one could move like Sterling Leppo."
dancing.
God.
Yeah, listen,
I feel like he would. He reminds me that what you just said reminds me of Tom Jones.
listen. I did not see him at this point in his career,
Right.
But apparently he could do the full split, straight up, back down, full
That's
split.
wild.
And like he was like James Brown.
I have
Right.
multiple firsthand accounts, witnesses to all of this.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me tell you what my mother said. My mother, Sue,
Mm-hmm.
Sue McLean back in the day. But anyway, she told me that he came running out onto the stage, jumped off the stage at one point, and hit the split while he was landing on the dance floor.
My father.
This is fascinating.
This is Sterling.
right.
Yeah.
He
You
was-
know,
I mean,
this
it's
is
like,
fascinating.
Yeah.
and multiple people have told me that.
Yeah.
And so Bruce was the
Legendary.
drummer of that
Right.
band, and my dad wasn't a guitar player or anything. He was the front man
God.
of that band, and they were called The Last.
What if there was footage somewhere?
Well, we did when Dad and Mom had their 50th anniversary, or something major.
It was his 60th birthday.
Maybe.
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Me and Jason and Uncle Bruce practiced for like months.
A brief set.
Yeah,
of-
and we did a brief set of The Last, like we did Gloria and like all
Knock
these
on wood.
Donna for my mother,
Right.
and Dad. We invited him up and he sang and everything like that.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And that was the last time, God rest his soul, with Chippy. When Chippy was happy, that was the last time Chippy was happy.
And that wasn't that far from here.
Yeah. So listen, we went a little heavy there, but it's good stuff.
Yep.
So you got into the guitar eventually after negating the
drums
violins
weren't an option for me, even though I wanted it.
Right.
It was the guitar, and that was the most handy. But remember, I got my first guitar when it must have been 1982. It was Christmas, and got that thing. And I don't want to put it down. It's my first guitar, but it was like a lot of people's first guitars. It was a real cheapy, kind of a knockoff from Sears or something, and the strings were like a mile off the fretboard.
right.
Like trying to dig your fingers. Like you have to really want to learn to play to put up with that for a while. But I did. I was into it. And I was on a mission to learn some songs to play with my friend that I had just met when I moved to Westminster. Right, that was the last the winter I had when I moved to Westminster, and eventually grew up with my friends and started playing in bands and stuff in Westminster.
Right,
but that was the beginning. And
now you never took lessons though.
I didn't at first, but after about 6 months or so, I did. I started taking lessons in Westminster at Christie Music, and Bob Coffey, many listeners may know locally, was that legendary guy in the music business, had a store in Westminster for a long time, and he was one of the employees at this store at the time.
Of Christie Music. I remember Christie Music.
So I took a couple lessons there for a while. I had a couple of teachers, and one kind of I settled on. He was a young guy. He was just out of high school. His name's Steve May, and he was a great, great guitar player. He was much closer in age, so I could relate to him, because some of the older guys that were teaching were like teaching you from Mel Bay books and stuff like that, and it's like that held no interest to me whatsoever. I just wanted to learn how to play a song. I wanted practical advice on how to approach the guitar, and being able to watch people like him, who was a very fluid and well-taught player, very disciplined too, was mind-changing for me. So I got pretty good in a short period of time, because I focused all the energy I should have been focusing on my schoolwork into music.
Right. So I just remember 24/7, like if you were around, it was the radio was on and you were just leaned over in front of the radio just trying.
Yep, or backing the record up and trying to hear it again, because that was the dinosaur days still. It was a pre-digital world for all intents and purposes, Now, when you, from there, like, because as my memory goes, it's like that happened, and then all of a sudden, I feel like you were in a band and you were playing out, like in Baltimore. Is that how it happened, or did you have like a couple bands, like, you know what I mean? So middle school, I think, I'm looking back at that age. I came in halfway through middle school in Westminster in '82, and I didn't know anybody yet. But that was when I met my first musical friend, my very first, very close friendship that I made in Westminster was with a guy named John Graham. And he was a wonderful guy. He was really, really smart. Had kind of like academic type of parents, they were quite smart and stuff. And I was really impressed with that, just because, a lot of other friends had kind of like weird broken homes and stuff, and his wasn't like that. He had an older brother and older sister, and they were into music and had awesome record collections. Cheech and Chong were the first times I heard them over there, But anyway, he was a lovely guy, and we both were starting guitar at the same time. So we were on the same level. We liked the same music. We loved Led Zeppelin. We loved Jimi Hendrix. We loved everything. As far as that was, I got into other music earlier with some of the punk music back when I was younger. It was by virtue of being around older kids. And I seem to have a history of that, always having friends that are older than me, between 4 to 6 years older, and as, a general rule of thumb. And when I start to count all the friends I have from that generation, I feel like, wow, I wonder what's up with that. I don't know why that happened, but it did. And I learned about music that was underground, Black Flag and Bad Brains and Minor Threat and all that stuff. And it was fascinating to me. I just didn't get it because to me, it was just like skate punk music, and it was kind of aggressive, and it wasn't as musical to me then. But
were you aware at that moment that some of those bands had local, or close roots or whatever? Didn't Bad Brains, weren't they from DC, or was that not? Or Fugazi or somebody? At
that time, it could have been across the country for me because I wasn't traveling at that age.
I got you.
So it didn't matter. But I knew Minor Threat was supposedly a band that was local and stuff. And I was around kids who were skateboarding and stuff, like Rob Oswald.
Right.
He was one of the guys. And, he was also playing drums even back then. And so, local people, musicians were always on my radar back then, and just got to be lucky enough to play with somebody like that. That guy's a really great caliber drummer.
That's Rob of Jade's Rob.
Robert Oswald. Yes.
I'm hogging the questions.
No, it's fine. I was just going to ask, back then, even starting out with guitar, who were your influences? Why did you decide, what drew you to start playing the guitar?
Right. So for me, guitar was almost an escape. Mm-hmm. I was a bit of a latchkey kid, right? So I kind of came and went as I wanted to in a way, but I also, did have some discipline attempted on me, but it didn't stick too well because I was born with a really hard head and very stubborn.
I never saw it. I'm telling you.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would regularly go out and do things, and regardless of whether I had any permission to do it or not, and I would suffer the consequences when I eventually returned with my tail between my legs, but I just kept doing it anyway. But I knew I was into something really special when I learned about punk music because it was much more accessible to me. You didn't have to play other people's music perfectly, and in fact, if you mess up, no one really knows anyway because it's all part of the music. So it seemed a lot more freedom for people like me to express myself. And seeing some of the early shows, the earliest shows that I think I remember seeing were when I was playing with other bands on the same bill at a party. Mm-hmm. So actually going to live shows, I'd never been taken to a show by anybody before. So yeah, just playing with other bands was my first exposure, and you see another band, and it was a scene. And then from then, those guys are going to play at the Utah Street Clubhouse, in Baltimore on Utah and Mulberry Street, that infamous place that Jules opened back in the early '80s, and it was an all ages place. You didn't have to. There was no drinking, there was no bar, there was barely a functional toilet, kind of like CBGB's of our day. That was our CBGB's.
And how old were you at this point?
So that whole thing started when I was 12.
Yeah.
But
it was in Baltimore City. That's what I mean.
I wasn't going to shows until I was 14.
Okay, I just remember you were very young, and my mother, Donna, she's always like, Jason's in the city, I think. That kind
going
of
to shows at 14, but you were playing shows at 12.
So we were playing amongst ourselves, right, at that age. And then when we got to high school, then we started to venture out because, hey, it's an all-ages gig, so they can't refuse us for our age.
Right.
And that was the game changer, and Ian Mackay and the Discord people and, his tight-knit group of fellow like-minded musicians and skaters and stuff had their scene. And that was what they wanted to create out of it, was this, sense of, hey, you can't just block us out because we're not here to drink. We're here for the music. We don't care about drinking. So they started the whole X on your hands thing. And so meaning you're straight edge, you're underage, not drinking. And it became a symbol of the straight edge youth. But I took a slightly different turn on that road. That was where I parted ways with
yeah, but I mean, isn't that wild?
Yeah,
like, I just remember,
that's a cool story,
you know, being young and not knowing where you were. My mother being like, "Oh, I worry about Jason. You know, he's playing in Baltimore," and I'm going,
"It was sketchy
he's
as
playing
hell.
in Baltimore. Like, what do you mean?"
It was sketchy as heck back then, you know, because I mean, we would get in a car full of people who were probably fucked up.
Right.
We're driving somewhere we've never been.
Right.
And everybody's stoned or fucked up or something, and we're looking for some place, and we're getting lost, and we're in really shady parts of town.
Sure.
And, you know, eventually you get there, you know, but you think of all the trouble and craziness you go through, and you get there and then it's sold out, and you're on the streets walking around trying to figure out what you're going to do for 3 hours, you know.
I mean, that's so wild, dude.
Yeah,
but
I mean, you know, you look back on it and it's kind of different. It has
So
a
did you
patina
guys-
to it now, you know.
So did you guys tighten up as a band during those years, like the Beatles, and you know, or did you guys just were you going hard and fast, not trying to really?
We always had
evolve as a
good
band?
drummers, you know, and that's what set us apart. Because
Rob
other than
is
that,
incredible. I've never met the man, but his style.
starting all the way
Is
back
this
in
the
high
Jade
school.
days?
This is pre-Jade, even pre-Jade, right? So the original band was Generic Youth.
Oh my God, I remember that.
Generic Youth.
I remember
That was our skate punk band, and Dave had the half pipe in the backyard that they built from scratch.
Dave who for the people at home?
Dave Ferraro. Yes,
Old Westminster Pike. It was one of the only ones, like a
Right.
half pipe on the East Coast, or there was some kind of like a legend.
We
about
had a quarter
that half
pipe in our neighborhood that Wayne Stockslegger built.
This was a half pipe. And
it was
balls.
full, and it was a nice one too. They knew what they were doing. They studied other people that did it, and he's always been a very thorough guy, Dave. And he's the man. He totally did that up, and his family are ultra cool for letting him do it in the backyard.
Yeah, that was in my neighborhood.
Yeah, because you'd have people from all over the place. You know, they would go skate somewhere, whether it's Lansdowne or Shrewsbury or different places, and then people would come and follow them and be skating in his backyard from all over the place. Yeah, we rode up from Virginia Beach. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, I remember.
You see who's on his half pipe back there? They're killing it, man.
I remember riding my bike to Burger King past the half pipe all the time, and it was like Woodstock. Like the whole backyard was packed with people. Like it very well may have been like relevant people. It was in the 80s.
Right.
It was in the 80s. I mean,
that was the skate scene back in the 80s.
That was the
wild.
band that I formed with Dave, and he was originally the vocalist, and he wrote the lyrics of the songs and came up with the ideas for it, and I would sit there with him and just write off music or what I thought was cool. And we made a little recording of it. You know, we were impressed with it. We made a demo locally in Carroll County, and it really wasn't half bad. I wish I could say I had a copy of it, but I don't, and I'm doubtful that anybody else may still have any copy of that.
A cassette.
Yes, but the superintendent of Carroll County Schools, Mr. Stephen Lockhart, Dr. Stephen Lockhart, is our original drummer.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, and he was
Generic
awesome.
Youth.
He was.
Did you say the current
I
superintendent?
believe it's Stephen Lockhart. Yeah,
Really?
Yeah, he was one of my classmates, and you know, he
cool.
was our original drummer. We used to practice. Our very first practices were in his family home basement.
Right.
So.
That's awesome.
So we had him for a while, and then we kind of outgrew that situation. He had a lot of other things, obviously.
Right.
But
he's a doctor.
Yeah,
Even back then.
his dad's the same. He's a very well educated family and venerable family. But we got a guy named Grant Sheehan from South Carroll. He's in Westminster, but down closer to where you live, B.
Right.
And he was a really great hardcore thrash drummer. He wanted to play faster. He wanted to play thrashier, and it got to the point where my tastes weren't quite as fast as his, and it was it seemed like after we did a little bit, our best stuff was with him. We actually had a nice little set of music, and we could play a show, and we did. We played some shows in Baltimore and parties and wherever we could, you know, at that age. And it was a lot of fun, but eventually it kind of fell apart because drummer, we weren't seeing eye to eye.
Right.
But that led, fortunately, to what happened later, which is with somebody who I've known for many years before that. When I was a kid, he was one of the skater kids in the neighborhood, and we looked up to him and Mark and other people, and they're the ones that turned us on to this kind of music, right? I remember walking home from a baseball game that I had. I was walking through the street, still had my uniform on. He's like, "Mr. Baseball," and we would start talking, and he just this little kid in here with his baseball mitt into the listening room where they got all these records out, and he's like, "Check this out,"
Right.
It was like he wanted to see that expression, Everybody loves that when you got something you like or something you're excited about, you want to play it and get other people's reactions. I think I was the guinea pig for that.
Sure.
So anyway, that was the introduction to the style. But Rob was one of those guys.
So that is the end of Generic Youth. You guys just kind of fizzle out and immediately start Jade, or?
Yeah, I mean, everything was
or
there,
but
just
evolved.
The name wasn't there yet, and the name was picked because we couldn't decide on a name.
And Jade stood for
Jason and Dave Experience.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Simple to the point and works.
It was just one of those things, and it just seemed like, okay, let's just call it that. But once Rob joined, the situation got dramatically better, and I'm just going to lay it out, my love for the drums, because with a good drummer, even with a bad drummer, it's still better than no drums.
Sure.
Most of the time.
Yeah, so you could argue
Most of the time.
Right. It's got to be a uniquely.
I got to
bad
put a little
drum.
caveat there because somebody's going to pop up and
Sure.
they're going to be proven wrong. But yeah, that guy is so incredible, and it spoils you as a musician. I mean, it kills you because if somebody's that good, there's not a good likelihood they're going to stick with playing with me very long. They're
Right.
going to find much better opportunities, and I would take them too. But it is hard to follow and act like that.
Well, so you guys though recorded rather quickly, it seems. Am I like all of a sudden you're like, "Hey, I have an album." Like, what grade were you out of high school, or were you still in high school?
We were just out of high school, and we knew what we wanted to do, and we were already doing it live. So we kind of hit the ground running from that point on. But, we never had a singer. And originally Dave sang in the old band, but he learned guitar in the meantime, in the last years of high school, and got to be a really good rhythm guitar player. And so we had that thing going on. That was our best dynamic, having great drummer and having the dynamic with the two guitars. Then we got Ron. We got Ronnie boy.
Dude, Ron.
Once Ron came into the picture, it was complete.
Ron's nasty. But was Ron nasty back then as he is now? Or was he
Ron?
just... Yeah, our Ron of Gravedigger's Biscuit.
Ronald Rossback from Dundalk, Maryland.
Yeah.
Yes, and he is a badass bass player. And once he was working, I like to describe my life, if I'm really thinking about it, almost like I'm like a Forrest Gump.
Right.
I'm like wandering through life almost blindly, and I'm stumbling into things that are really interesting most of the time that aren't bad, So I've had these experiences, and, for a while, if we get away from Rob for a second, there's a side track to the story with our drummer, with Jade. So Rob was the original drummer. We started having some problems. I guess, Rob had different interests at the time.
Right.
Put it that way. He was kind of into a spiritual thing. And it wasn't necessarily jiving with what was going on in the music stuff. So we kind of took a break from that. And we found this guy. I found him at a Dag Nasty show at the 930 Club, the old 930 Club in Washington, D.C. on F Street. And I was in the basement. I just wandered down there. Again, Forrest Gump, right? Down in the dressing room, it's a crowd of people. Everybody's talking, having a good time and stuff in their own little worlds and conversations, drinking beer, eating pizza. And so I kind of am standing in an area listening to one of my guitar idols, Brian Baker. And Dag Nasty was the headliner of the show, but he was the guy I always wanted to emulate back in those days. He was one of the coolest guitarists for my money. He still is. But I heard him talking about his influences to somebody, and he said Johnny Marr was one of his greatest influences from the Smiths. Mm-hmm. And I remember being really taken back by hearing that, because it was totally unexpected based on what I was hearing from his style of playing. I wasn't hearing Johnny Marr there.
Right.
But
were you offended by that?
Not at all. It jarred something loose in my brain that made me realize that the anarchy of punk music, the beauty of the anarchy is it's an anarchy of genres. Anything could cross anything, and that was when I really started to realize that, And DC also being the bands like Bad Brains, where you're fusing reggae and hardcore punk, and trouble funk, go-go music, right? So
yeah, how about that?
Right, so that leads me perfectly, segs into this portion of the discussion of Jade drummers, and that is Brandon Finley. And Brandon is a guy from Silver Spring. He knows and grew up with a lot of the other people in the DC punk scene, but he is more of a go-go, kind of a drummer. I mean, this guy is phenomenal to a point where he could, I think he has at least on one occasion played with Prince, wow. Played with all top level of stars, who was the Queen Latifah. He played on an award show with her.
Wow.
Yeah, he was doing a lot of big stuff like that, but he also was the drummer for Chuck Brown, right? So Chuck Brown, DC Go-Go godfather, right? He started playing with him when their original drummer left to play with Miles Davis. So he was a working drummer for the music scene, and we happened to meet at that dressing room because he was friends with someone there, and I was talking to him, and I was looking for a drummer. They said, you need to talk to him. And I did, and he was a really cool guy, and we kind of started up a friendship because he was interested in punk music and wanted to lean in on that part of it and see what it was like. And that was right around the time when Living Colour was starting up too. It was in that same
the Cult
time.
of Personality when they're hitting.
They weren't big.
It wasn't that. It was
no, they weren't
that.
like that. It was before that, right? Because I did see them. I saw them.
That was the hit that set them up.
Cult of Personality, yeah. I saw them open for Soul Asylum at the old 930 Club.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, they were the opening act for Soul Asylum. That's awesome. But they killed it then. But
so I saw one of the recent Hot August, I saw Galactic.
Oh, Stanton Moore. Baby.
Yes.
But the lead singer for the band at that moment was Corey Glover.
Oh, wow.
It was fantastic.
Wow. I wonder how
He's a great frontman.
It was great.
Yeah. But so it was that vibe, that fusion, like I said, that's the anarchy that I think it really symbolizes what's great about that genre. But with all that kind of stuff going on, we were trying to do that too. So as a punk group who were limited to 3 chords or whatever, and we're starting to play with the caliber of drummer like this, after playing with Rob too, and it's funny because their styles are so different.
Rob's style
so different.
Yeah, Rob is you can't emulate him. Like, it's so out there, but it's awesome. I mean, he's incredible, but it's so hard to replicate.
It's a thing of stripped down and funky and tricky too, but then a really more busy style of playing. And sometimes it's hard to get one to do the other. It was hard to get Rob to strip it down sometimes, and it was equally hard to get Brandon to kind of fill it out a little bit more, because when you're just playing a power chord on a guitar, it's like if you have drums that are really sparse, it kind of leaves a lot of space, and we weren't very comfortable with our vocals at the time. So it would been nice to have something else to go in that space, but we didn't, because vocals were the Achilles heel of our Jade musical project.
So when you guys, where did you record that album?
The
like the one
original
I recall
recording that we did, we only released one vinyl record. An EP, 12-inch EP with 4 songs on it that lasts for probably like maybe 12 and a half, 13 minutes total running time. But that was paid for at least the production of it was by me personally. And I think I don't have much money these days, but back then,
I was to say, how the hell?
I don't even know where I came up with it, but I was the bankroll. So we recorded several different sessions when we had enough money to get enough time, and Brandon led the production, the recording, and all that. So we left it up to him because he had some experience with it that we hadn't. And it was interesting. We're never really satisfied with the mixes. And so we had the tapes, and then we had another friend from another old days, but his name's Brian Hemler, and he's a musician and also a studio engineer down at Lion and Fox Studios back in the day in D.C. So we took our recordings to him, and we finished them there. And we were a little bit happier with the production of it, but still, overall, not very happy with how that turned out, how it sounded. And I think it's mainly because, even though I look back on it, it's a pretty short period of time. It was probably over the span of a year. But it felt back then like it was taking forever, and we had literally evolved so far musically by the end of that process that the record didn't seem relevant anymore.
Right.
So that was the downside, but we had to release it because we had just signed with Merkin. Joe Goldsboro, Baltimore music legend and Reptile House founding member, Discord. They were, I think, besides Lungfish, the only Baltimore Discord band. And they were the first Discord band that I saw, and they were very influential to me musically. I looked up to those guys. And so anyway, he was signing bands to his new label, Merkin. And this is in the late 80s, probably early 90s.
I'll say I was young.
Quite a few bands. Some of the bands he got were really, really good, like the Almighty Senators, Monkey Spank, Brian Rice. Yeah, genius band. Brian is a great musician. He's out in Austin, Texas for a while, still doing music.
I've seen Warren Bowes several times.
Warren
recently.
is a monster. Yeah. I love Warren. Great player. Hopefully he's doing better now too.
Yeah, I've seen him. He just played a Woodshed show. He plays with a band called Rachel Hall. He plays with our first guest, Ricky Wise. They do a stint during the summer. Usually, I guess during the summer a lot. They play. Ricky plays the bass and Warren's on the guitar for that.
Nice.
They
I always wanted to
play a lot.
I always wanted to play with Warren. Hopefully I'll get a chance one day. I played with Jack back in the day, Jack Denning, bass player for Almighty Senators. He wasn't in the band back then, but it was. We were very excited at the time that people were interested in our music. It was really what we were all looking for. And anyway, it got released. Eventually Joe took over and got the record mastered and pressed for us and stuff. We did the artwork ourselves. But with his help and his connections for distribution, we made it. We didn't get very far in trying to support it, unfortunately. The wheels started to fall off after that as far as being able to get much attention from the record label. There was a lot of stuff going on. It was a very dark period in a lot of people's lives in Baltimore for many reasons, drugs being one of them.
Right.
And so, they're always on the periphery of these things, and you take a wrong step and you could really derail all of your hopes and dreams. And you know what? If you survive and live, then you might want to be thankful for that, because there's quite a few cats that didn't make it.
Right.
And I knew a lot of them. A lot of them were my friends.
Right.
But it was a weird time. And
now let me ask you: you guys, you went in a van somewhere. Like, did you guys go on like a mini tour and the wheels fell off, or did you guys was it just a? Did the band officially call it quits, or was it you got stopped?
No, that was the best part of the band was our live performances, because, again, back to Rob and drummers and in general, when you got a really good drummer behind the set, that a lot of the focus of attention is on the drummer. And, maybe it should be on the singer or whatever, and that could be the case once in a while, but if you haven't seen Rob play, you haven't gone on YouTube or watched Karma to Burn or any of the other things that he's been in, he's a force of nature, man.
And he's a wild man.
He's wild. And he beats the living tar out of his equipment. I've never seen maybe Joey Castillo. I mean, when I watch him play, that reminds me of Rob, the way he plays. It's just everything is balls to the wall, hard.
Right.
No matter how fast it is, he's still hitting hard. Mm-hmm. Whereas when I was telling you about the Descendants show I saw the other night, and boy, that was a good one. I haven't seen them since 86.
The Descendants.
1986. And I saw them the other night with my 14-year-old daughter, Sophia.
Tell them the lineup.
I saw the Circle Jerks.
Right, the Adolescents, the Circle Jerks, and the Descendants, all from the same area of Southern California. Yeah. And I was Descendants are my daughter's favorite band.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
How awesome is that in general? But I'm so glad I got an opportunity to take her to see him. We were in the front row. Got my face kicked in multiple times by crowd surfers.
Where was that at Soundstage?
That was at
where was it?
That was at the Rams Head Live.
Oh, Rams Head. Okay.
And so there was a space there where they dump them off.
Yep.
But I tell you, I don't mind the crowd surfing. I could handle that, getting kicked and stuff. But I was terrified for the crowd surfers because one of them almost got a concussion.
It's like you're old now. It's so funny. You're going, guys, please.
Dude, even Keith Morris and the Circle Jerks kind of called him out and said, why, man? Why? You're going to have a concussion, man. So it kind of stopped for a while.
Safety first these days, man. Safety first.
I think a lot of people, especially young ones too, but they're old and young crowd surfing, but they realize how good this is to have this, because this is high energy stuff, and it's like not the kind of stuff you play in a coffee shop. It's like it's going to be crazy if it's done right. And
he said the funniest thing to me a while ago. He was like, because he's over the past 2 years, he's recently revisited these old school punk acts that have come around, and I think you saw like the Dead Kennedys or somebody last year. You saw somebody.
Circle Jerks, yeah. They were around.
Okay. Well, he was like, I said, well, what'd they play? He's like, well, they can play their whole catalog in 12 minutes. He's like, so they have to play covers.
I mean, just speaking, it's funny that we're talking about this music. It just popped into my head, something I heard today, like the Russian Republic of Croatia just banned music that's too slow and too fast. So they banned music that's below 80 beats per minute and above 120 beats per minute.
Wow.
Banned.
Oh, man.
Can't listen to it.
Why?
I don't know.
Why
because
are they
it's the Russian Republic.
Yeah, but why are they afraid of those rhythms?
I don't know.
Like, why
but isn't that a weird thing?
What a weird
I literally,
rule.
In fact, I heard it on the way here, and I was like, that's
Alexia, there's too much treble on that. Take it down.
Right, it's like Footloose. It's like a national Footloose.
But I was just music that's too slow or too fast is out.
That's obnoxious as fuck. What's
Croatia.
up, Croatia? Fuckers.
But it's funny because the song that was on when I was driving here was The Pretenders, and the dude was like, it's 97 beats a minute, so they're safe. Like, you can listen to Pretenders in Croatia.
Wow, what a weird law.
But you probably can't listen to Circle Jerks, I would imagine. They're probably over 120 beats per minute.
Yeah, they're over 120.
The beauty of that band, though, I'll have to tell you, the Descendants were on spot, man. I mean, the difference between, I was talking about this earlier, right? But we kind of saved it for an opportune moment. And talking about the different style between two drummers, all right, the Descendants and the Circle Jerks. So, both bands, very aggressive, fast style punk music. But the Circle Jerks drumming generally is quite busy and really hard hitting.
Right.
Really, really hard hitting with Joey. And Bill Stevenson's approach is very different. He's a very light touch.
Right.
And he kind of just adds these little jazzy things in there, It's such a different style, but they both really work,
Yeah, because that's the thing is I recall at some point you were gone for a minute, not too long, but like you were out somewhere on the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did that, was that a train wreck or was it a successful, because you guys were in a van,
It was success for us. It was a 3-week odyssey.
Okay.
Yeah, man, it was wild. And the coolest part is that we were really unknown. We had never toured in any of these places before, so this was all new for us. And for the most part, things went okay.
Where was it? All over?
So we went. We did a southern tour, but we never got further than San Diego, California. So when we got to California, we were hoping to get to Los Angeles, keep it going all the way up to Seattle, but it wasn't in the cards for us. We just had incompetent help. We didn't know any contacts. We didn't have the secret list that, a lot of the old school bands kind of had going around with each other. We didn't have one of those. We were just trying to do it ourselves because, like I said, at the time, the record label kind of was incapable of really giving us any support or help. So it was like, guys,
and what's more punk than
let's keep riding this as far as we can. Maybe something good will happen. And so we did. We just took off and had a good time. Did this couple week stint. Went down through the South. Went into Texas. Texas was the best part of the tour. We had more fun there. We were in Houston, and where else were we?
Just in general, because it was a different world.
People were more into it, I guess.
Wow.
It seemed like we played at a place called Emo's, which was a pretty well known place there, and they have a crowd anyway. But they really liked us there, and we had a good time. We had a good party atmosphere in that town in general. We liked it.
Right.
It was fun. And so then we went to Arizona, and it was the same vibe. It was a really cool desert vibe, and Tucson, and the place we played was huge.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was huge. It was really wild. And then we eventually made it to San Diego, where we all got sunburned on the beach, sitting there pre-dawn, just chilling, and the sun starts coming up, and before you know it, however you were sitting there, you had a terrible sunburn. Crazy. And it was rough. So, but yeah, we had a fun gig, UCSD, and that ended up being it.
So it's safe to say that the demise of the band was poor management and drugs, ultimately.
It was just a series of some poor choices and being naive about how everything was supposed to work. Right. Just ignorant is more than I can say. I was so focused on music and playing, and that was the area that I felt good in. And the rest of it, I didn't really have to do that much. A lot of the planning and organizing of things, Dave was really good at. And so that was more of a thing where he would, call Kenny at 930 Club and get us a gig there, put a lot of this stuff together. And so, everyone for different reasons started getting tired of their role and was kind of getting like, well, how come so-and-so doesn't do this? How come I'm doing that? Ronnie bought the van, so nobody could fault Ronnie.
Ronnie bought the van?
Dundalk Ronnie bought a van for us to tour in. And that was, I don't even know how we could have done it without Ronnie.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we poached Ronnie from Richard Taylor and the Ravers. That was the Brandon connection, right? So because of Brandon, the original drummer in Jade, original recorded drummer in Jade, we met Ronnie, and we pilfered Ronnie. And he came over to the dark side. With us. Unfortunately, he probably ruined his whole career.
Right, soft-spoken around.
But yeah. So once that kind of started to implode, we didn't have anything else to do. We came back and recorded with Tony, right? So Tony French.
Is that Oz Studios?
That wasn't Oz. That was... we did record at Oz, but that was different time periods. Okay. And most of the stuff we recorded at Oz, I don't have any copies of. The only copy of music I recorded at Oz that I have is the one that I produced myself with Drew Mazurek on the engineering.
Right.
And so, but I have that. But the stuff that I felt captured the vibe of the band best when we were right before the end was the stuff we recorded at Tony's factory studio, Hat Factory. And so he was kind of in the early 80s, was starting, I don't know if he was starting a label. I kind of had an idea that's what he wanted to do with it. But he had this big factory, loft in Baltimore on Baltimore Street, and it used to be a hat factory. And that's why they call it that. But he was recording 16-track and stuff in there. But it was raw. It was what we were looking for because Oz was like really clean and really, I don't think we knew how to deal with it. It was like it was too. It exposed too much of the stuff that we thought we were incompetent with. Or like, I wanted to sound more like it's falling down the stairs, or whatever. But
that makes sense.
Tony, he helped us to really capture a live sound better, where we were playing together more, and it was more fun. We started to experiment with overdubs because we felt more comfortable with him. So we, put a couple of, vocal tracks and then maybe an extra guitar track for a solo. But that was about it. Rob did a couple of percussion things where he had this like little like baby xylophone thing that he used.
Bells, right?
Yeah, or like bells. The screen from a fan, like a metal fan. He would like play that. I mean, it's just weird stuff. But
yeah, that shit did sound good. The Hat Factory.
Time. The production quality, it really isn't that great because the mixes are so guitar heavy and mid heavy that they just drown out a lot of the nuance of the drums and the bass.
Right.
But that's just.
It was the era.
Yeah, but it was the first X album, Los Angeles. The songs are great. It's one of their best albums, but it was just produced a little kind of thin sounding.
Right. Let me ask you this, and you can speak to this however you want, but what I recall is all of a sudden you were gone. And I wake up one day and I am told Jason took Pop's car and moved to China. And I thought it was a joke. And I'm going, what do you mean? And they're like, I don't think Pop, like, I was under the impression that no one knew you left. They woke up one day and you moved to China. Mm-hmm. Is that how that went?
Pretty close. Pretty close.
Because it's like, that was kind of the vibe I got, was my mother was beside herself because she was like, now keep in mind, this is,
I didn't want anybody to try to talk me out of it because I was afraid they could.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what? So to start with, had you always considered China?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, what made you do that?
Yeah. I wanted an adventure. I wanted a real life adventure that was not just going into the city and doing the same old thing of getting fucked up, looking for friends, drinking, running around, going to shows. I mean, it was good fun, and it was, there was a lot of good sides to the party life, but it was already getting old. Mm-hmm. At that point, and I could see that there was this glaring sign in front of me that was warning me that if I keep going down this road, all the bad things happening to everybody else around me were going to start happening to me. So it was time for me to get out of town, and I had, whatever reason, I just had something inside me that wanted more out of life. This was not enough. I didn't have enough yet. And it was like, I'm not checking out, and I'm going to go on an adventure so I can get the hell away from all of this external influence in my life and start over, almost like become a new person.
In China? I mean, you were broke,
right? It wasn't
right?
China at first. It was in Japan at first.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So first went to Japan. And I tried to make a go of it there for about a year, and it was very expensive. It was a Spartan lifestyle. But I met a friend there who was from England, and she talked about this place called Taiwan. And Taipei, to be specific, it's the capital of Taiwan, the Republic of China. Not to get political, but it's different than the People's Republic of China, in case you don't know. Spent some time there, and she had told me how great it was, and that it was more laid back than the vibe in Japan, which was, again, it was cool. It's everything you would expect to see in Japan, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just like they say it is. It's clean, it's beautiful, it's organized, it's polite, it's all that stuff. A little severe and brutal sometimes.
I'd say it's Shogun, baby. What Christ, that's the only
when
way
you like. What did you do when you got there?
So I had studied Japanese for a couple years before I came back. Between the time I finished high school and between the time I left, I went to college, took college classes.
I didn't know that.
I was interested. I got interested in language, and I thought Japanese would be useful. And I remember, I think it was President Bush the first said that people should learn Japanese and learn foreign languages. It could be very useful. And I thought, okay, that sounds interesting. It wasn't because he said it, but it was interesting. And so I found an interest in it from that angle. Wanted to learn a language I thought would be really useful and interesting. But the thing is, after being in Japan, I realized that, Japanese is really useful if you're in Japan. But if you're not in Japan, it can be pretty hard to find Japanese people sometimes. They're not like a diaspora around the world as much as, say, Chinese, right? So that's the road that kind of led me to Taiwan, because they do speak Mandarin Chinese there, right? So, I became a student over there then, and I decided that, wow, I love this place. They love Americans here, so it's really, really safe, and,
And this is like the mid-'90s.
This is early 90s.
Early 90s.
Yeah, early 90s.
Now, how long did it take for you to make the jump from Japanese to Mandarin linguistically? Like,
it was completely different.
That's what I'm thinking.
Completely different. But it's still a challenge for me. I've lost a good deal of my fluency speaking. But I think I'm definitely better with listening now than I've ever been, just because it's much easier for me to retain understanding and comprehension than it is for me to always remember the right pronunciation for things or the right grammatical structure, So since I don't use it, even with my wife who's from Taiwan, we speak Chinglish sometimes, or we'll speak Chinese.
Nice.
We'll speak Chinese if we want to keep something on the down low,
Right.
That's slick as shit.
Yeah.
But you want to talk about somebody, it's she'll start it too. We'll be standing somewhere and she'll start telling me in Chinese, "Look at that dude, look at that," and I'm just like, "No, I'm not looking at that. They're going to get me in trouble. I'm going to get clobbered."
So you said your wife's from Taiwan, but did you meet her there?
I did, yeah, met her there, and funny because it's around the same time I started working for the movie star, Mr. Kung Fu.
Right, Jet Li. Brian,
Look, I keep telling him. I was
Look
like,
at that. Now that leads perfectly into this whole rabbit hole.
I can't wait for this.
Yeah, so explain that. So you go to Taiwan. Is this so you meet Shay and then you
I hope this doesn't get out very far to the people, the authorities in Taiwan.
Right.
But I was there on a student and then also a visitor visa. Yeah. So, but I was there just to, to learn Chinese, and I started doing that, and I had the good fortune to meet somebody who was from Canada, and he was a model. He's like, a really handsome dude, he did modeling for like big modeling agencies, but also like runway stuff, like he was a, not Gucci, but Versace model. So anyway, the guy he was a cool guy. I just met him at a cafe one day, because there's only so many foreigners over there. Sometimes you're going to run into them.
You guys stand out.
But we became friends, and he ended up calling me later. Had this opportunity he wanted to tell me about, and it was working for this Chinese movie star, and he needed somebody to teach him English, to also kind of just be around all the time, almost like a live-in type of a situation. So it's like you're a personal assistant sometimes you're an interpreter, sometimes you're just like a dialogue coach, or you're just teaching him privately, teaching him how to speak English more fluently. He spoke nothing when I met him, literally not even
this
one
was
word.
Prior to, he hasn't done any American films at this point.
Right. This is in it's not the mid-90s. Well, it's right around 90.
And say who it is.
94, 95. Oh, so yeah, the guys, I'd never heard of him before. So I told some of my friends in Taiwan, told my wife, I said, hey, look, you know this guy? This guy's name is Jet Li. And Li Lianjie is his Chinese name. And my wife about dropped on the floor.
I'm sure.
Right. I know who he is.
Yeah. So she explained to me what a big star he was. And I wasn't a big kung fu fan. I didn't dislike the genre, but I just didn't know who he was. And so, when I found out, I was very excited. But, that led to that opportunity where next thing I know, so he knew the guy. And the guy wanted to hire him for this position. But he was like, nah, I'm going to India and I'm going to study some guru or something, That was his whole thing. So he didn't want to ruin his vibe by doing that. So that's why he called me. He wanted me to step in so he could cut loose.
That's crazy.
That's
he was
incredible.
just like, no,
right. So
I don't want to do that.
You see the Forrest Gump analogy?
Yeah.
It just keeps coming back.
Right.
And
yes.
so that's another moment, another door that opened that probably shouldn't have, but it did. The universe does these things. You just have to be ready to step through. So I did, and started going down that road, and I was living in Hong Kong, based in Hong Kong. I was traveling all over the world, traveling back to Taiwan.
Was he shooting movies and stuff, or was he in downtime?
Was the reason that he needed you for this, was that because of Lethal Weapon 4?
He was ready.
That was his first American movie.
Yeah, he was exploring his options for after he finished his current contract. Mm-hmm. He had a contract with Win Entertainment in Hong Kong, and he had to do so many movies with them. And that was very frustrating, I believe, personally for him, because he really couldn't get out of these things, even though he was already ready to take the next step. They were kind of holding him back because they could. And the guy who runs that company is a notorious son of a really big-time triad mafia gangster.
Really?
Yeah.
So he could not leave.
Oh, God. I had some great stories. I was around nothing but triad guys.
Is that right?
That's insane.
The whole film business. That's it. They run everything. I heard the story about a British director who came over there to film once and hadn't hired the union people, their people to work, and he got kidnapped. They had to pay ransom to get him back. And they did, and they got him back. But he's lucky to be alive.
They don't play around.
Yeah,
that's... Well, he told me that. He told me, don't discuss it. You don't talk about that in company.
Is this the Once Upon a Time in China era, or like
Fist
that
of
kind
Legend,
of... Yeah, like old school Jet Li, like those movies.
It is, yeah. It's a little before... and up to during the time of he did a movie called Black Mask. And
I remember the cover of
the Black Mask, and that's where I met Karen Malk. She's the actress who's in that opposite him, and she's a really cool lady. She's half Portuguese, half Cantonese, and she's a singer, very popular singer and star all over China, all over the Asian world. Wow. Karen Malk. But there's met a lot of interesting people over there. All the Hong Kong business people, from Jackie Chan to Sammo Hung, all of them pretty much. I never met Andy Lau.
So let me ask you this: did you?
How about
Bolo Young? Do you know who that is? That's the big guy.
No, I've never met him.
Oh man!
But I knew plenty of people who knew all of those people. The people who knew Bruce Lee.
Right.
People who personally knew him. Yeah.
So what about Oliver Stone? There was rumblings you met Oliver Stone, I recall.
That was one of the better people that I was lucky enough to meet.
Was that Jet Li connected?
It was definitely Jet Li connected, because I have no business being in the same room as Mr. Oliver Stone, who is an incredible filmmaker and storyteller. And it was with Jet Li, and we had already done the movie in Texas with Sammo Hung directing, and that was the Once Upon a Time in China.
Oh, nice.
I forgot what number it was. It was one of the upper numbers, Roman
3,
numeral,
right.
something. But it was Once Upon a Time in China in America. That was the twist on it, because the other ones took place over there, but this was like, oh, the Wild West, the Chinese were here too, so they kind of incorporated their own story with the Native Americans, and it was an interesting story, for what it was, and the budget they had, which I'm sure wasn't very much, but it was fairly decent. It was a really great experience to see how they make movies all the times that I was with him on the set, but I definitely have not want to be in that business. I hurry up and wait is a whole new level at that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's astounding.
Yeah, there's so much to wait on, and everything has to be perfect, and it's just very time consuming. I remember spending really long days on the set whenever he was filming, and it was just grueling. There was a lot of great people around, but it was just a grind after a while.
So Oliver Stone.
Oliver Stone was very gracious, was very interested in Jet Li and his career, and had followed him quite a bit, and just wanted to get to know the guy. Jet was on kind of a getting to know you tour of Hollywood, so it was people like Oliver Stone who were interested in talking to him and meeting with him, and building relationships and things.
And what does that look like? Are you in a bar or a restaurant?
No, in his office. Yeah,
wow.
in Hollywood, in Santa Monica somewhere, I think, and in an office. I don't know if it was his office or if it was somebody else's, but it was an office where we met, and I remember doing a good deal of translating. I had taught him pretty well up to that point, but once in a while I'd have to kind of give him a clue as to what was being said.
So it's pretty wild. I mean, basically wherever Jet Li went for a period of time, you were standing
pretty
right next
good.
to him.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. And I got to travel to a lot of places I otherwise might not have gotten to travel to. It was on his dime.
Did you ever try to take him?
Yeah, right. I tried to get him to teach me a little, but he thought the better of it, because he knew it's like, he would tell me, he's like, nobody's faster than a bullet. Yeah. So, it was better to not fight.
Right. Interesting.
Don't think you can learn something and then go out and use it, because it's probably not going to work out.
Right.
I mean, that's incredible, though. I mean, you just roll off to China and
Forrest Gump, dude,
and fall into a quasi movie gig.
Well, that's what makes
with the triads and Jackie Chan.
That's what makes me not afraid to give something up and start something different too. Because, on the one hand, you're scared. I'm like, gosh, what happens if this happens or whatever? But I kind of get the same way, thinking, well, man, if I'm stuck doing this all the time, I'm not free to do something else that I want to do. And so with Jet, it was that, starting a family. So that was the main thing. I had to keep my family together. So traveling was just getting to be too much, and living on the road with him. So
how long did that go on for?
So that went on until 97. Mm-hmm. And that was when the handover of Hong Kong also happened. And it was not that long after that I decided it was time for me to go. And that's when...
Was that politically motivated, or you just were homesick?
Well, it had nothing to do with the politics, although I had put it to you this way, I had a feeling that things were going to work out a little differently than maybe some more optimistic people might have been thinking.
I see.
I'd been to China many times, and I've been to Hong Kong and lived in Hong Kong. I've been to Taiwan, I've been to Japan, I've been to Thailand, I've been to Nepal, I've been to India, I've been to England too. That's the only European country I've been to. That's next on my list. But, all these places have their ups and downs, but I didn't think Hong Kong would be able to stay the same. It's just incompatible. So I just kind of saw, this is eventually going to happen, what has come to pass. So, we love our freedom.
Sure. Now, let me ask you this. Did you and Shay tied the knot over there?
Yeah, at the consulate. Taiwan doesn't officially have embassies, right? Because there's a political thing, right? Mm-hmm. So in 79, I think it was, Jimmy Carter changed our diplomatically recognized to People's Republic of China, which was started by Nixon and stuff. And Taiwan still remained, but it was just a different entity. It's like a limbo type of entity. They have not as many countries, very few countries have full diplomatic relations with them. But I think they're a wonderful country, one of the best in Asia, the smartest. They have incredible tech. And if you wonder why America loves Taiwan so much, it's partially for its people. It's really good people, really smart people, hardworking, well-educated, and they're great chip makers. Right, so I guess the chip is the daddy. You need to have your chip manufacturing under your belt, yes, to do anything. All those missiles aren't going to fly themselves. Right. Yeah.
Well, luckily you came back in the nick of time to start a family, and
yeah, it was the right choice all the way. And it's it was a different lifestyle at that point.
So wait, you moved back in '97?
So late '97, moved back, and that was to Taiwan for good. I was not traveling, working for Jet anymore, so I was full-time in Taiwan. I see. And my wife, Shay, had already started her business. She started it from the ground up, a school. At first it was for younger kids, but it expanded, and she had all the way up to high school and even adult classes in the evening, but it was a school. It's what they call a bushiban, and it's a cram school, but they have all grade levels. When the kids get out of school, they got to go there and study, and then they get a snack, and then they do their homework, and they have tutoring and all that stuff. And so she was the big boss and brains behind that whole thing. And when I got back, I started working there full time to help the school grow, and was teaching English.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, I was teaching. I'd never been a teacher. I had virtually no training. I had tutored before, but I had never been a full-time English teacher. And it was, it was, again, Forrest Gump. What am I doing here? Or seriously, but
he just breezed into an English teacher
in Taiwan.
It was wild, but we became stars of the neighborhood.
Right.
Because the thing is, a lot of foreigners do come and go from there, and there's a lot of them that come and teach English on a contract, and they have they probably teach more of a part-time, and then they have a lot of free time where they can travel, and that's why they do it. It doesn't pay a lot, but they don't have people to stick around that much, and I stayed there for quite a few years. Yep. And so it was a great experience.
And was she ready to leave, or was that upsetting? Was she okay with coming, or was she kind of like, I'd rather not, but I'll go?
I know, right? So I think that it's both. I think she was very excited to do that, but I think she's also got to give up a lot of what she built in that school. She had more than one branch. There was a main school, but she had other branches, and so it was quite a business. Dozens of teachers, and
wow.
And so she sold the school, and that was a really difficult thing. And I came back earlier than her because I was trying to get set up again over here. And it's like, it takes a little while to plug yourself back in and be able to support a family after living the life that we had lived up to that point. But, change, it comes. You just got to be ready to adapt.
You roll with the punches. It's amazing.
So music was out of the story at that point of my life. It was focused on the family at that point.
And then
That's cool.
So when we started playing again, had you picked up the guitar before that? Again?
When you were over there, did you not play music at all?
Pretty much no. I didn't a little bit, just a little tiny bit, played, but nothing that amounted to anything as far as not even playing gigs, just jamming with a couple of different people.
Right.
But yeah, it was a real dead zone for me musically. I was desperately trying to get music recorded and to play with other people and create something, but I was in a world in Asia where, the kind of music that I like is much more of a small niche. It's definitely not on TV or the radio. And on top of that, it's mostly not in English. So, I had friends. I had made connections with Jet Li and people in Rock Records in Taiwan, and they were like the biggest like label that would have anything like I would consider music, like rock and roll style music. And they had a couple big artists on there. And so they also had licensing deals with other bands. So Brandon Finley, our old J drummer, right, was playing in this band called Dog Eat Dog from New Jersey. And they were like kind of like a hardcore, almost like a Limp Bizkit style music. And they came out, I would reckon at the same time or maybe earlier than Limp Bizkit, maybe. They were on Roadrunner Records and had a big following and did really well in Europe, but not so much in America. So, he was doing that kind of a gig and playing, and, I was, their record got distribution in Asia from Rock Records, the Taiwan label. And so when I was in Hong Kong, met up with those guys. They had flown them over there to do some, PR and do some gigs and stuff. And so here I am sitting right behind my drummer, rocking these gigs out to all these little teeny boppers in these places and going crazy. And I was like, man, I wish I was in this band doing this with these guys. But it just, the timing wasn't right. So, right. It's a weird thing. Music is a beautiful thing. It's magical. And if you get the right people, you've really got to hold on to it, because if you let it go, it just dissolves. It dissipates.
And it's a shame.
Quickly, I would imagine.
It's just a shame. Yeah. Well, it's weird because you were always known. I mean, I knew, but you were always a really great guitarist. And so it's just weird to me. Like, I always feel like you must have had your guitar 24/7 your whole life, but it ain't like that. You had it 24/7 your whole life for 10 years or 15 years, and then you put it down for 15 years, and then you picked it up again, or what I mean?
Yeah, it gets foggy. Once you stop doing something, all that, muscle memory is kind of there. It's like riding a bike, I guess, but still, you're not going to be at peak performance. So for me, I just kind of felt like the more it got separated from playing with other people and going to shows and seeing live music myself, the harder it was to figure out what I wanted to do with music. It's like, I don't even know. Do I want to play rockabilly? Do I want to play jazz? What the heck am I going to do? Because I feel like I'm almost starting from scratch. But, I did start to get to a point where it's like I realized that musically my true heart lies with where I really started. So, that was kind of the decision that, if I have to play anything, I want it to be my own music. If I'm playing other music, I'm doing it because I want to, or there's something I get out of it. It's usually not a paycheck, to be honest. It's
never is.
It's nice to be recognized and to have someone say, "Here's some money for what you did." I mean, who doesn't want that? Right. But usually, it's not like enough for it's going to make a significant difference in my life.
Right.
So it's more of this like, well, do I have fun playing this with people? Do I get to keep my chops up? Am I learning how to put on a better show for people? And to me, at the very worst, it's paid rehearsal to play other people's music for people that enjoy it. So the fact that they enjoy it makes it worth it to me, and I get to
make a little
become a better
cheddar.
musician.
Yeah.
Right. So
right, it's a win-win.
But the I think legacy, now that I'm getting older, is like, I want to leave something behind that people that I may never know, probably will never know, that are related to me will find terribly fascinating. Wow, maybe some of them might like the music. Who knows what it could inspire? I would love to know this kind of private information about my ancestors, but I never will. But the younger generations today and in the future are going to have overload of information.
Digital record.
Yeah, they're going to be like good, bad, and the ugly. They're going to know more about us than we do.
Well,
this is documented right here. We're
This is
doing it right now.
right.
Yeah,
So
legacy, right.
So that's going to lead us here to the Gravediggers Biscuits, the start of a legacy. Now, before we get into it, so I haven't told you this, and I keep forgetting, and it's not like a huge deal, but it's just one of those weird serendipitous things that is just so funny. So
I'm ready.
We lay down the Gravediggers Biscuits tracks last year, and we don't really sing, he or I or Ryan. We do, but we were thinking of a front guy for that band.
This is original music.
Of original songs, right? So we go in the studio, we throw it down, and it's good. It's great stuff. We got 4 good tracks. All of a sudden, like a month ago...
5 good tracks.
5 good tracks. A month ago, he texts me out of nowhere, and he's like, you'll never guess who got a hold of me and wants to be like the front man of Gravediggers. He wants to put his own spin on it. Chris Roten. Okay?
Curtis's brother?
Curtis' older brother, the lead singer
of
From the Hills. Yes.
What?
I swear to God, dude. Chris Roten is right now working with Jay to be the front man of Gravediggers Biscuits.
So you know what that means.
I do know what that means.
You know what I'm going to say?
You're going to say we're going to be covering...
You're going to cover 2 songs.
We're going to cover some From the Hills, baby.
Yeah, 12 quarters.
12 quarters and pickup truck.
I wrecked my pickup truck.
I would do either of those.
I demand it.
Can you believe that, though?
No, that's awesome.
That's
out
of nowhere. He's like Chris Roten.
Actually,
he had this
How
band.
did you forget to tell me
I reached
that?
out to him. Yeah, I just did, because every once in a while we run into each other or something, but we just really never talked about playing in a band together. And so I just reached out to him. I was like, "Hey, man, how you doing? Check this music out. See if you like it. You could write some lyrics to it. Join the group.
Right.
And so he took it from there. Yeah,
That's great news.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah, no, this is
out of all the serendipity.
Oh my God, this
so
is
the Iron Boss from the Hills.
Yeah, he's an
Iron Boss.
Boss.
Right? No, I forgot about
Boss,
that. I forgot about
Right.
that.
I mean, Curtis. Like I haven't thought about Curtis. And
So I saw.
This is amazing.
I remember seeing Iron Boss when I got back. This was in the early 2000s. They were opening for Clutch at the Wrecker in Towson.
Are they still around?
That was a great show.
Who? Clutch?
Iron Balls.
Oh, Iron
No,
Balls.
they're not.
Yeah.
But after that, they formed From the Hills.
Oh God, From the Hills. What an incredible debut!
That is Carroll County rock and roll.
Oh my God!
He's supposedly got most of the lyrics ready. So he said he's happy with them.
Oh my
I think
God! I cannot fucking wait
There's one track that has a riff in it that's a little bit derivative of Ace of Spades.
Oh,
Nice.
really?
And I think that's the one that he mentioned. He's got a working title for it. It's called Space of AIDS.
I mean, have you heard him sing recently? Has he still got it?
I haven't heard shit, but I'm
so when are you going to be recording this? Because
Well-
I'm definitely going to be there.
Well, something cool has happened, and that is he's had a lot of health problems. I mean, for like broken bones, all that motocross stuff
Right.
that he's known for. So he's had all kinds of injuries, and he's recently gotten all this work done, and he's fixed up, and he says he's like brand new.
Awesome.
It's like Bionic Man or something. So I'm
Nice.
like, wow.
He's
So
a $6
great.
million man.
We need a front man who can hop around a little bit.
Gravediggers Biscuits, baby. We're coming
That's
at
awesome.
you live. Yeah. Well, look, man.
That's
I mean,
exciting.
I'm just enthralled that we're together. We're still doing it. For the cheap seats, there are 4 Gravediggers Biscuits tracks that are on YouTube right now. 5 or 4? We recorded 5, but there's only
the 3 with vocals, because we had
shit.
two other songs we didn't do any vocals to.
Right.
So they're instrumental. They're badass songs.
I totally
but
forgot
they're-
about that.
Yeah,
Dude,
they're
that's-
instrumental.
everybody that hears the theme song loves it.
right. And then we did the theme song
Yeah.
just not too long ago.
that was a lot of fun
in
doing
Black
it.
Dog
It's
Studios.
great, man.
Yes.
I love putting the music into the episodes.
I know, and I think it works perfectly.
It's great.
I mean, it's fucking wonderful, dude.
That's why it's fun to just roll with stuff, because that version of it sounds very different than the other version that we played.
That's a song that you've kind of had like on the shelf.
Yep.
Well, we recorded it, I think. Did we record that one?
That's one of the 2 songs that we didn't have any vocals for.
Okay, I would say, but we did it like the way we did it here and layered his solos, and Ron was doing different
we
solos.
just made it up as we went along.
Yeah, like it was.
No, it's great.
It was
works
way
perfectly.
better.
I mean, the first time I heard it, I was kind of mind blown, and I could just picture the beginning
I know.
of the intro, like everything just came together.
I know. As it was happening, I'm going.
And it has.
Like,
that's how it works now.
Even while we were in the studio, like with Ron,
You're
me,
in
and
your
Jason,
head.
I'm going, Chris. Chris is going, what? And I'm going, listen, bam. Like it just seemed right,
Yeah,
I mean,
no, it works, and it's great.
But look, I love you to death, man, and I'm very happy that hopefully we can add some legacy, to the Leppo family name here going on, and and maybe we'll get the biscuits in the lounge for live at the lounge.
100%, yeah.
As long as it involves live show, then I'm
Yeah.
in, because I love to record, but there's that connection with the audience that you make when you play live.
You were always Billy Zoom. You were always the Billy Zoom.
My favorite, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
From X, right?
Billy Zoom from X.
The wide stance, just.
And the big grin.
Yep.
Yeah, the big grin. Just
That's
sitting there and
awesome.
grin. You know why he does that? He says it's because during the day, back in the day, now, he's a little bit of an older cat, right?
He's way older.
Yeah, he's
than
like
the
in his
rest of the band.
70, I want to say 75.
Damn.
Yeah, he's older now. But he was saying back in his day when all the guitar players were trying to jam, they'd always make these contorted, agonized faces while they're playing. And he says it was so hard what they're doing. He's like, he just wanted to be the complete opposite and make it look like it was just nothing. So he just sat there and smiled the whole time.
Wide stance.
Yeah.
Look up footage of Billy Zoom. Like, I mean, it's.
Well, he was just the king of cool, man.
Yeah,
He looked like Rutger Hauer. He looked like
He
didn't he? He had like that like platinum hair and his big blue eyes and the giant smile and that silver leather jacket on, and he's playing that sparkle top Gretsch, man. What's not to love, dude?
And X is the band that is your John Doe. Is the guy who's the bartender in Roadhouse?
Yeah.
Remember the smarmy guy with the mustache?
Right.
John Doe is the lead singer of bass. Does he play bass in that?
Plays bass. Yeah,
Really?
he's a hell of a bass player.
Yeah, that's where he was from. Like when he showed up in Roadhouse, everybody's like, "Is that John Doe from
That's
X?"
wild.
Yeah,
Well, you remember the singer Exene Cervenka?
I loved her.
She was married to Viggo Mortensen for a while.
What?
They have two kids together.
Oh my God,
Yeah, right.
that's incredible.
Aragon.
Los Angeles.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's
Yep.
awesome.
I know, it's a small world when you start to find out who knows who. And
That's
who's
incredible,
married to.
dude. Well, look, I love you to death. I'm happy that we're doing this. I'm happy you did it, and I'm happy you're involved. And hopefully,
Yeah, man, it was great.
The
They
biscuits,
were fantastic stories.
Yeah, I mean, you're like a smarter Forrest Gump. I mean, more ambitious.
I give him a run for his money. Run for it.
Right. All right, man. Well, I love you, and that's it. Till next time, stay sane, Baltimore.
Yep.
Thanks for listening, Baltimore. You can find us at www.sanitylounge.com or on Instagram at sanity.lounge.
Keep listening and subscribe.
Stay sane, Baltimore.